Hello, welcome to Wikipedia World Video. Today we will talk mostly about the period from the 16th until the 18th century. Beside the cruel New World conquerors of the popes, there was also one special Roman Catholic religious and military order, founded in 1540 by a man called Ignatius Loyola. This organization is called the Society of Jesus, better known as Jesuits. They performed the same acts as did conquistadors, Inquisition, and most of the Western European rulers of those times. Jesuits became the synonym for destruction and conquest of non-Catholic kingdoms. Concerning the Europe of the 16th century, we mentioned earlier that Great Britain, or precisely said the English King Henry VIII of the Tudor dynasty, declared independence from the Roman papacy authority, or the Holy Roman Empire. Actually, many other Western European rulers, princes, priests, and common people did the same thing during the 16th century. Namely, a priest called Martin Luther was the first to start an open rebellion against the Roman Catholic Church because of its crimes, disobedience of Christian biblical laws, immoral life of some of the popes and priests, the selling of indulgence, and so on. He separated from the Roman papacy and formed a new church and Christian religion system, called Protestantism. This event is generally called the Protestant Reformation, since Luther and his supporters wanted to reform the church and bring it back to its Christian monotheistic roots. Since Protestants were opposing the Roman Catholic Church and tried to diminish its power, wealth, and the number of subjugates, the Roman popes decided to start a new crusade war inside the Christianity of Europe and declared Protestants and other new fractions of Christianity for heretics. They were prosecuted by Inquisition, and their settlements and places of gathering were destroyed by Western European crusade armies still loyal to the Roman Empire. The long-lasting European wars of religion ensued and lasted during the next few centuries. One of those most devastating wars was the French Wars of Religion, from 1562 to 1598, fought between Catholics and Protestants from various Western European countries. The war ended in 1598 by signing the Nantes Edict, when the rights of Protestants were formally accepted, although the wars were later carried on until the end of the 18th century and the French Revolution. The most remembered event of that period was the so-called St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in 1572, when Catholics killed several thousands of Protestants. Many people from France, England, Germany, and other European countries separated from the Roman Catholic Church and joined the Protestants. On the other side of Europe, that is, in the Eastern Europe, there was a growing force soon to become a new world empire, or at least to attempt to join the world domination race. It was the Russian Empire. The first historically known medieval Russian state was the so-called Kiev Russian state, formed in the 9th century. Pagan Russian tribes converted to Christianity in the 10th century, and they reigned the modern-day Ukraine and Western Russia until the 13th century, when Mongols invaded Europe. During the next 2 centuries, Russians liberated their lands and founded a new empire. The first Russian emperor was Ivan IV, also known as Ivan the Terrible, who ruled in the 16th century. He was proclaimed for emperor, or Tsar, as they say, in 1547, trying to replace the Eastern Roman Emperor title since it was conquered by Turks. The Russian capital, Moscow, was to become the center of Eastern Orthodox Christianity. That is why it was sometimes called the Third Rome, the second being Constantinople. The Russian Emperor Ivan IV also conquered many vast territories in the east, that is, the Asian parts of the modern-day Russia. During his reign, the power of the Russian Empire reached its climax, although even succeeding Russian rulers and their military leaders did extend the borders of the Russian Empire, especially toward the east, as well as toward the south of Europe in later ages, when they got more involved in wars against the Ottoman Empire. While in Russia, a new dynasty came to throne at the beginning of the 17th century, the famous Romanov dynasty, which ruled until the beginning of the 20th century during the First World War. In the south of Europe and in Central Europe, Turks were still trying to invade and conquer the Western Europe. One of the important battles Western Europeans won was the sea battle of Lepanto in the 16th century, that is in 1571, although Turks quickly recovered from this defeat. In the coming decades, Turks were still trying to conquer Vienna and waged many wars against the Holy Roman Empire, France, Republic of Venice, and all other, mostly Roman Catholic kingdoms of Europe. Two most famous wars, or series of wars, they waged during the 17th century were the Cretan War, or the War of Candia from 1645 until 1669, and the Great Turkish War from 1683 until 1699. The Battle of Vienna occurred in the 1683, but Turks were defeated with the help of the Polish king John Sobieski. As we have said, there were many such wars between Turks and Europeans, as well as with different Asian and African nations, since Turks were trying to conquer the world, the same goal Western European kings, under the guidance of Roman papacy, wanted to achieve. All newly discovered territories of the New World continents were gradually conquered by Western Europeans, Portuguese, Spanish, French, English, and so forth. They took away other nations' possessions and territories, enslaved or destroyed the native people, and divided their lands among themselves. As anyone can plainly see from the historical facts, the truth of the matter is that it was not the age of discovery, as some say, but it was really the age or the continuance of wars and conquests of the whole planet by the same world empire that has existed since the ancient times. We could still call it the Roman Empire. At the same time of waging wars against Muslim Turks, Europeans of the restored and transformed Roman Empire also waged wars among each other. It was a new large-scale war between Catholics, led by the Habsburg dynasty of the Holy Roman Empire, and Protestants, although the persecutions and conflicts were occurring from time to time even before the war. And this war lasted 30 years, from 1618 to 1648. That is why it is called the 30 Years' War. All the European kingdoms, with the exception of Southern European ones that were conquered by Turks, participated in the war. In 1648, after signing the treaty in Westphalia and marking the end of the war, the territories changed from one country to another and from one dynasty to another, as after every other war during those times and afterwards. Catholics did not win and had to accept the rights of the Protestants. Almost the same thing happened in England 3 decades later, when the English king James II of the Stuart dynasty, which succeeded the former Tudor dynasty, wanted to convert to Catholicism. The Protestant majority rebelled. With the help of William of Orange and his Dutch navy, the English people removed King James from the throne and proclaimed William III as their new king. This event occurred in 1688 and is known as the Bloodless Revolution, or the Glorious Revolution of 1688, though we could simply call it the British or English Revolution. During the 16th and the 17th century, it is considered that some of the greatest scientists lived in Europe, such as Johannes Kepler, Giordano Bruno, Galileo Galilei, and so on. Though most of the modern historians and laymen claim that these scientists were persecuted by church because of their discoveries, or proving that the earth was a sphere and so forth, that is not correct, as we have previously said. Everyone, including the church, already thought of world as a sphere, while many things said by those scientists were actually proved to be incorrect. For example, Galileo claimed that the sun was immovable and it was the center of the universe, or that the planet Earth's rotation caused the ocean and sea waves. All of his arguments put forth as a proof that the Bible was not correct, as he and many others claimed in those times, were proved to be wrong by modern scientists. Today we know that these three arguments of his were not correct. It is a common misconception that the Church opposed the science, as if religion and science were always separated, something completely distinct. This is simply not true. The reason why Galileo, Giordano Bruno, and many others were found guilty by church authorities was because they practiced astrology, hermeticism, and occult practices beside natural science, and because they were trying to prove that the Bible was not God's word, thus unconsciously denying the existence of morality criteria. Certainly, this reason does not justify the misdeeds and crimes of Inquisition and the Roman Catholic Church, but it is important to remember that those events had nothing to do with the Church or religion itself, or with the alleged science and religion conflict. In the 18th century, even more wars over territories and wars over religion occurred all over Europe and Asia. Various kings and nations trying to liberate or conquer as much other nations' lands as possible. The world domination race was reaching its climax, while more and more wars and revolutions were occurring, mostly as the result of the world conquest competition between the Roman papacy and the opponents of their authority, usually called the Freemasonry. The so-called Freemasonry organization on one side and the Roman Catholic Church on the other side were constantly competing between each other over the territories, using numerous European and non-European rulers and military leaders to control other countries and to eventually conquer the whole world. The Masonic organization was founded at the beginning of the 18th century, although it was existent during earlier periods under different names. One of the greatest revolutions or rebellions of those times was the American Revolutionary War, or the American War of Independence, which lasted from 1775 to 1783. Namely, the British Empire formed 13 colonies on the east coast of North America. But some time after, the residents rebelled against the British king and wanted to be independent. Americans issued the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and by 1783 won the war against the British forces of King George III, under the guidance of George Washington, who became the first ruler or the first president of the newly formed United States of America. They had help and assistance from European countries, such as France and Spain. The wars ended by signing the Treaty of Paris in 1783. In 1787, they issued the United States Constitution as the supreme law of their republic, opposed to the monarchy system that existed in all other parts of the world. The first country that tried to replace monarchy with republic was the British Kingdom, that is England, which was a republic during the short period of the English Civil War, or Revolution, led by a man called Oliver Cromwell in the 17th century. The English killed their own king, Charles I, and tried to change the ruling system, but the monarchy was restored soon after. We will continue with the story about the 18th century in our next lesson. Thank you for watching Edupedia World video.